Hi, my name is Mathew Clarke and I work for Quest Software. Today we're going to cover Microsoft Platform Management and the tools in the migration space in particular. We look at the numbers, 336 million users strong. It's quite a large number and we're very proud of it. But particularly in the move space, which is our migration space, we're looking at 95 million AD users that we've migrated so far. We've got over 75 million mailboxes that we've migrated, which is double our nearest competitor. And if we look at the SharePoint space, we've got over 99 petabytes of data under management. In February of 2019, Gartner released this report looking at the cloud office migration tools from all the vendors that are in this space. And out of all the 40 features and functionality that is required for a successful migration of all data to the cloud, Quest was the only one that matched all 40 features and functionality. We jump straight into the portfolio. We follow a framework inside of Quest with prepare, migrate, coexist, and manage. The prepare space is where you spend at least 70 to 80% of your time. You need to make sure that the data that you're moving, the permissions that you're moving, is in a state whereby once it gets to that new environment, you're not left at risk or you haven't taken any unnecessary data across with you. With our tools, we can actually first analyze that data that sits in those environments and then indeed move the data across and use that same tool set to then maintain a clean, pristine environment that you've just built up. The first tool that we use to do this is our Migration Manager for AD. Migration Manager for AD is obviously for moving users, computers, servers, and permissions. We critically only charge for the users that you're migrating. The associated machines and servers, that comes across as part of the licensing. We often group this with one of our other tools called Secure Copy. And the reason for that is because anybody that's migrating from AD to AD is often not going without taking their data. And this tool is able to copy files, folders, printers, and shares and keep all of the NTFS permissions and securities in one piece from end to end. If you look at the next tool, is Migration Manager for Exchange. The point of Exchange migrations is you want a zero impact migration. You don't want your users to know that it's being moved from one platform to another. Anything that interferes with business costs money. So a seamless migration, a zero impact migration with a seamless coexistence. We're also able to go from any version of Exchange 2003 and up to 2019 or indeed straight into the cloud without having to build that middle jump server that I so often hear of in normal migrations. We also have a solution that will address your archive needs. So even if you're moving from one enterprise vault to another, we can move you with this tool, or indeed any of the other platforms you see on the left-hand side, across those targets on the right-hand side. The obvious reason and need for this tool is that people are realizing once you move into 365, you've got enough space to actually archive your mails in 365. And if you need additional space, you simply pay for it, as you do with all. The point of the tool would be that you want to have that chain of custody and reporting once you moved it out, so that you keep that compliance that was in the platform that you were in moved across to the platform that you're going to. You need to be able to report on that so that you can show the auditors this type of information. We also have a lot of PSTs still exist in the wild. And I've just recently seen a project that was done for a large hotel group where they not only had PSTs that were all on the end user's computers, but a lot of them sitting central. And what this tool has got the ability to do is to analyze the PST where it sits on a file server and give you a most likely owner of that data. As you can see, it can go from servers, from workstations, from removable media, wherever it is. If it can get to the PST, it will then migrate it across to either 365, your on-prem Exchange, or indeed it can push it straight into Enterprise Vault. We move into the SharePoint space, And our Metalogix stack is the tools that we use in this particular space. And as you can see, we have a list of source platforms that we can come from, moving across to any SharePoint Online, SharePoint On-Prem, as well as OneDrive. The reason OneDrive is mentioned in particular is because one of our SKUs that we use for these tools is to move just the what's referred to as EFSS, which is Enterprise File Share Servers, move those across into OneDrive. So something like Dropbox or Box or Google Drive, or indeed file shares themselves. You can actually then, like the user's home drive, you could move that into OneDrive for Business, obviously as well. The first of those tools is actually called Essentials for 365. Essentials for 365, as it says in the name, is particularly targeted at 365 migrations. We have other tools which we can use in the space, as well as our online tool, and the following slide will show you the next tool. But this is the tool where I was talking about EFSS. This is the tool you use to target those Box, Dropbox, Google Drives, any of those, and move that into the OneDrive, or you can actually take it directly into SharePoint spaces as well. The beauty of this tool is that it's not just a day one tool for the migrations, it's a day two tool as well. It's a management tool in its own right. It does some backups of SharePoint as well. But like I said, its primary focus is that migration stack, and then afterwards a little bit of management, and you can always move your data around. A lot of SharePoint administrators prefer to be able to move their sites around to resort their organizational structure. If the migration is getting a lot larger and a lot more complex, we move on to Metalogix Content Matrix. And as mentioned, larger and more complex would mean if you're looking at hundreds of terabytes of data, or even petabytes of data that we've looked at before, you would use something like Content Matrix. What Content Matrix can do is it can span out into multiple front-end servers, for want of another word, which form an array that will pick up a job from the back end, and they can all run independent jobs at the same time. So you can see that the clear advantage of this is that you can move far more data at the same time. It has the same functions of moving the file shares and folders, but specifically this is targeted at those complex environments. Obviously the workflows, the more complex the workflow, some professional services might need to be put into the quoting. However, this tool can handle most of the workflows, Nintex and the standard workflows. It'll natively migrate those for you. We're also looking at a lot of people that are coming off of Lotus Notes, and obviously Lotus Notes had its standard applications that it used to run, which is very similar to what we see in Microsoft space as SharePoint. So now people moving off of Notes need to be able to migrate that data. So we have a migrator from Notes to SharePoint, and it will target the standard Notes applications or your custom applications indeed, and then bring those across with your permissions and metadata in one piece, and migrate those into the targets on the right hand side, so SharePoint 365 or a local file system if you really wanted to, and again directly into an SQL database if you wanted to. The beauty of the tool is the ability to analyze the environment before you then plan and migrate that data across. And it's got the ability to as well, again, automate these tasks. So build up the jobs during the day, after hours, do the actual migration. All of these are complemented by our on-demand migration suite, which is specifically targeted at tenant migrations, which we're seeing a huge growth across the world, with companies being absorbed by other companies at the moment. The tool out of the box has the ability to do a discovery, where you could do a discovery across the source and target environment, and then you match the users across those two environments. We have multiple attributes that you can match on, and then simply migrate them across. We cover all workloads in this: Exchange, OneDrive, SharePoint, as well as Teams. Out of the box, you get Coexistence, which calendar sharing and email forwarding. We've also got the ability to do a domain name rewrite with this tool. The dashboard is very project management driven. So at any given time, just by taking a look at the dashboard, you can tell exactly where your migration project is sitting at the moment. And also we've got inside this again, the resource processing, which will be the client profile update utility again, that you would redirect the clients from the source to the target environment when needed. A typical scenario that we see out in migrations, most of the competitors forget about the fact that most users are actually sitting in a hybrid mode when they're doing tenant-to-tenant migrations. So you have to have the ability to migrate the on-prem as well as the cloud environment at the same time. So where you'll see on the source, you've got this AD sync going. You want to take those AD users and move them across to the target environment. Once they're across in the target environment, you can then sync them up to the cloud. As we know, syncing the other way from if you create a cloud-only object, it's not going to sync down to on-prem. So then if you want to maintain that management on-prem, you sync them across, you push them up to the cloud. At that point, we'll do the match across the two environments, and then you can migrate all of those workloads. In the meantime, we'll keep you in a coexistence state as well, with, as I mentioned, your email rewrite. The email rewrite is easy to explain in this slide here, where I'm the user sitting on the outside. I send a mail to a user at target.com. That target.com email realizes the user is actually sitting in source, will forward it across to source where the user can then read it. When he responds to that mail, he's going to follow the normal DNS process, at which point we have to intercept the message, rewrite the address so that when it gets to the user on the outside, it's actually seen as target.com. So this is, as we mentioned, it's a rewrite service. And it gives you that full coexistence from day one. So that if you'd acquired a company and you want everybody to have the same SMTP address, you would then be able to have that from day one as well. Then we have an additional tool, which is also the on-demand platform, but is actually, we only use the same engine on the back end for this. This tool is able to reach out and connect to the other independent mail sources, such as Exchange and Zimbra and obviously 365, Sun1, any of those platforms, and in particular Gmail is an obvious one that we do as well. And then take that mailbox and pull it into either 365, or indeed you can push it straight onto on-prem, Exchange, whatever version it is you want, as well as hosted Exchange environments. I've actually got a scenario now where I should take hosted and put it on the source environment, because we're using it for a large MSP in Africa, where we're moving the hosted platform into 365 for them. We also then look at Migrator for notes to Exchange. As mentioned, notes is, there's quite a few migrations that are still going on out there. You need the same kind of functionality that you would in a normal Exchange migration. So we have a coexistence manager as well that sits in this space, where we're able to give that full rich coexistence between the notes environment and Exchange online or on-prem as well. The migration scenarios that I've just stepped through over here is exactly what I said in the past, where you can do a simple tenant-to-tenant, which there's quite a few competitors out there, but the critical one is the center one, which is actually the majority of the migrations that sit out there, the Active Directory hybrid tenants. And with our tool, you're able to do a migration from on-prem to on-prem with the cloud, making sure that you retain all the permissions that are required for that on-prem environment. Also, critically, multiple tenants into a single tenant, which we've seen many scenarios where up to 6 or 7 tenants being collapsed into a single tenant. And that's all I have for you on the migration stack. And in my other video, you'll be able to catch up on the manage and secure products. Thanks very much.